we had that here as finance controller. So he was instrumental, no doubt, in what happened certainly in the period after Expo 88. You've got a book.
I've got a book. Come to that later.
Okay. Jane, I'd love to start with you. I mentioned that you were the head of PR and communications, and really that was not only an incredibly big title and one that really wasn't common at the time, but you were selling something that you didn't even really know what it was to a world that really didn't know where Brisbane was.
That sums it up pretty well, actually. So I did start, I'd been a journalist in Canberra and then I was working at the ABC here. So the job came up and it was, I think, 1984. So I guess there were lots of things to do, and leisure in the age of technology is not a very sexy kind of theme to be working with. But I think the major problem was trying to convince people that Queensland could do something well. I think everybody in this room would have had some sort of experience in their professional life of this kind of cultural cringe. But it was an enormous thing to leap over. And one of the things I think I'm most proud of at the end of everything we did together was the fact that all the people in my division, and in the end I had 75 staff, budget of 30 million, there's Bob, 30 million. But, you know, all the people I had working for me were local kids who just put their heart and soul into it, and, you know, we just wore out the shoe leather telling the world.
You know, we heard Barbara talk about the fact that this wasn't something you could do part-time, and I imagine for the communications team in particular, there was no resting.
No, we certainly slept in our office on many occasions, and that was in the years leading up to Expo 88. But I must say, I do think one of the things that underpinned the communication success and you know, selling the sizzle rather than the steak, because we didn't actually have the steak just yet, was really to begin kind of at the Daintree and work down to the Tweed to make sure that every single community group that got together in groups of more than 3 actually knew about Expo 88. So while a lot of it was done through the media and with great assistance from Shane and his team, you know, I had teams of people out there with video recorders in every country town just talking about how it was going to be. So, yeah, very proud of them.
Shane, you were there every single day. What was it like through the eyes of a journalist?
So I suppose a little bit different for us because I guess we weren't part of the inner team, we were part of the observing team, but there every day. So it's probably 8 of us as journalists who covered it every day. So I think the thing about it for us, it was just continuous and unrelenting. And if you think that just this kaleidoscope of celebrity things moving, because besides the things that the public saw, which was, you know, this great party, there was this whole other expo going on. There was media conferences, there was celebrity visits, you know, there was corporate events, there was unveiling of masterpieces in the Spanish pavilion, there was Canada bringing their best chef and dinners at night, so we were just non-stop, and I was there the whole time, and I barely scratched the surface, even being there every day. But for me, I think it was just the celebrity. So, you know, Margaret Thatcher, I remember I was sitting with Tony Curtis, the Hollywood actor, talking about Houdini and how they did the tricks. And I was somewhere in the depths of the Queensland Pavilion with Donny Osmond talking about family birthday cakes. It was like I was walking through the site with John Williamson looking for an emu to photograph it. It was that sort of thing every day. And after a while, it just became your reality. It's this unreal day that you had every day.
Yeah, we talked briefly with Bob about the fact that, you know, the press weren't particularly kind in the lead-up, but did you also get a sense once the gates opened and the people were pouring in and the content was there, that there was a real shift to the positive?
Yes. Well, I think there was, in the lead-up, so I think, you know, particularly if you take the Courier Mail, where I was at the time, Courier Mail kind of defaults to the public watchdog, right? Are we wasting public money? That sort of thing.
Oh, really? Do they?
Yeah, strangely, there was. But I think there was 2 things happening. I think one, I think the work that James' team was doing behind the scenes was where the real action was. It wasn't really relying on the media. So I think there was a definite shift. I think once you started to get international pavilions on board, I think once the ticket sales started to come, everyone to say, actually, this thing looks like it's got a bit of momentum going on that. I think eventually the media just embraced it, and I think the thing is, it was an extraordinarily well-run event. Like, I think that's the thing about it is, like, as journalists on the side, you're always kind of looking for the story, right? Because media runs on the currency of angles. And the point is, you know, there were a lot of minor things on the side, but overwhelmingly, there wasn't that much fault. It was extraordinarily well run, and I think that just set the tone. The event just became so all-encompassing around positive, wonderful things going on. The rest just proud of his background.
Graham, take us back to 1988 for you. What was going through the cogs as this was all unfolding and you had taken on this new role in council?
Well, this was all a massive learning curve for me, quite frankly. I was still in my 20s, and so it was about just acknowledging that there's this great world of opportunity that was there, and every day was exciting. I went a few times with Anne in a private capacity, but mostly was there in an official capacity. So Sally Ann obviously had a myriad of invitations, could not do them all with her other Lord Mayoral responsibilities, and so she kindly used to delegate to other members of Cabinet, other members of the team to represent her, and so I had the opportunity of doing a couple of those, which was really good.
Anything in particular stand out as a fabulous memory?
Not a fabulous memory per se, but an interesting memory. I was asked to go to the launch of the Papua New Guinea Pavilion, and you'd never get away with it today, but we were sitting there with some officialdom in the front, and all of a sudden these topless New Guinea women all started hearing him dance, and I remember not quite knowing where to look that day.
My husband says you just look at their eyes, apparently.
And it was part again of the great cultural learning that Expo was.
So it may have been a fabulous merit, at the very least an interesting one.
An interesting one.
Jane, when things started actually getting rolling and you had these media conferences every day, that must have been the springboard then to 1,000 moving parts and you trying to make sure that you could orchestrate them all.
Yes, I've got to say, actually just setting up the media centre was a challenge because, you know, the technology was much less advanced then than it is now. We had to accredit 6,000 journalists. And there were press conferences every day, but not just the ones we had in the media centre, but the sort of thing that Shane's talked about. So it was very, very busy. But again, you know, all local Queensland people. I'm thinking of wonderful Ian Eckersley, Angie's here, who worked in the media centre, and Greg Turnbull, who looked after all the media accreditation. And people just stepped up and did well. I was saying with the accreditation, the journalists had to show it every morning, and Greg would go down to the gate to make sure that they were all coming in and everything was shipshape. And a Swiss journalist turned up who wasn't accredited and wouldn't take no for an answer, and actually bit Greg very badly. He had to be taken to the market for stitches. So, you know, there are all sorts of things happening all the time that you just have to kind of roll with it.
I don't think the Swiss would have the
Passionate, very passionate about getting on the side.
You also told me the story about a piece of Expo that you've kept, which I think is a really lovely story because every day it must be a reminder of that time for you.
Well, thanks for reminding me. There is a mirror on the wall in my office at work now, and I had it in the media centre, and every single head of state or you know, rock and roll band or entertainer who came had a press conference, and they all looked in the mirror to fix their hair or do their lip before they went out to meet the press. And I've kept that mirror, so it's in my office, and my staff and I regularly tidy up before we go to our meetings, so it's pretty special.
Is that mirror good talk? We were talking about the development of Expo, what we now have as the South Bank Parklands. Shane, I'd love you to give us that perspective. You know, when Sally Ann talks about the people power that shifted it from turning it into a concrete jungle into the parklands we enjoy, and how the paper was really instrumental in making that happen.
Sure, and I think the paper and a lot of others. So you've got to remember with Expo there was this real dilemma. So World Expo 88 was, I think, the first one ever set up to break even. So you don't make money out of expos, you really don't break even out of it. They're generally an investment by a city or an area because of the promotion and the legacy, the infrastructure that goes with it. So because that discipline was set, you know, Salou and the team who are doing that worked very, very hard, Bob obviously, very, very hard to get the ticket sales up and get it so the gap between ticket sales and the income and the amount the expo cost was pretty much the value of the land. But to do that, you had to get a very high yield out of the land. So it was all set up, and it was actually announced that a consortium, I think they're called River City 2000, that was announced as actually the redeveloper of the site. The site had a giant World Trade Centre. It had moats. It was almost like a replication of the CBD, to be honest. It was high buildings on this side of the river, so it would have created almost a separate CBD. At that point, I've got to say, I've been a journalist for a while and I'd never seen a bigger reaction. So we were kind of picking up in the paper there was something going on, but I was there, I guess, sort of running the campaign to try to say, hey, let's get the money, let's do something for Queensland. And I just remember the day we did something we don't do very often, or we didn't do very often, was we did a story that says, tell us what you think, ring this number. And I was the poor idiot that had to answer the call. Seriously, all day. We lost count. Yeah, and clearly, people of Queensland were just saying, okay, we don't care about the money. So I'm sure the Lord Mayor wouldn't say it was the easiest political decision ever made, but clearly in the end, nobody cared about the Expo not breaking even. Everyone saw it as that extraordinary opportunity to do something special.
We talk about the legacy, and there's obviously been many of them that are obvious, but there's also some that aren't so obvious. Don't you talk about the festivals and things that were born out of Expo?
Yes, I think, Barbara, particularly with the entertainment and my own team of journalists and communicators, a lot of those people went on to set up very, very successful businesses. I'm trying to think of the wonderful man who did the lighting on the site. He was appointed eventually to do the lighting on the only new bridge that's been built in Paris. There are people who went off and worked for the United Nations. Morris Catering, who did the catering on the site, they ended up, feeding all the troops in Afghanistan. So I think that opportunity for people to step up and have a go, and I think the wonderful management we had where people said, look, we're entrusting you with this, make a go of it, and we did. I think that yielded, a lot of the professional base which carried Brisbane for the next 20 years.
And then there were other festivals like the Literary Festival, like Brisbane Festival. We can all trace their origins back to Expo.
Back to Expo 88, yeah. So a lot of things we take for granted in our calendar of cultural events and World Expo on stage, lots of things at QPAT really were born out of that wonderful event.
Graham, I know now that you're really excited about this art trail and the idea of having even more pieces from Expo reinvigorated, reinstated, and a reminder, not just to those of us who have the memories ourselves, but to pass it on to the generation below who didn't get to go to Expo but understand what it meant for our city's history.
Well, absolutely. There's little Expo reminders all over the place, and perhaps a lot of people don't realise that's what they are. So the Queen Street Mall, for example, up towards the George Street end, you've got Gestation sitting there. You've got the Man of Matter series. You've got Showdown, which has just been relocated about a week ago now to Gregory Terrace. So if you're driving along Gregory Terrace now, you'll see that one. And the one that I really loved was, I noticed that John Truscott did a forward for this, was the John Underwood series called The Human Factor. Now this was a series of figurines, if you like, done in fiberglass originally. And what we're doing, and I again have to thank Peter Acey for this, he's done all of the investigatory work in finding where these pieces are, because they've gone to the Four Winds. There was a series of about 90 pieces, I think, in all. We've recovered nearly 20, we're up to about 18, and we're getting them recast in aluminium so that they will have a long life. We're going repositioning them. Just about 2 weeks ago, the latest piece, which we nicknamed the Butterfly Catchers, have been stationed out at the Mount Cootha Botanic Gardens, just near the lake. There's other pieces in King George Square, near the King George Square car park. So there will be a range of these series that will be popping up to remind us. Now, they are not what you would, most sort of experts or critiques would say is top quality art. But I have a view that they are what I love, which is human scale art. And the number of selfies that will be had with these pieces around the city by visitors to our city, I think will be enormous.
Shane, we was talking again with Bruce on the back of the conversation that we had earlier with Sally Ann about the changes that we saw in Brisbane. We now have these reminders, but when you were talking about the stories that happened post-Expo, have some really strong views about the cultural shift that we had in our city after we were exposed to the world.
That's right, yeah. Well, it's a cliche to say that we changed our mindset, but we actually did. So there's a few things. Like people in Brisbane used to go to bed early. So I think what happened in post-Expo is people learnt to appreciate different types of art and culture. So the things that happened after Expo got bigger audiences. You had, the outdoor dining is an obvious one, but the other thing that happened is the city itself. If you actually look at the interstate migration figures happened after Expo, a lot of people hadn't been to Brisbane either ever or for a very, very long time, and they got a taste of Brisbane. So for probably another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years afterwards, people were actually moving here. I think Sally Ann alluded to the fact what it is for people's careers and worldview. There were so many people who might have had a fairly limited view of careers in Brisbane who suddenly were opened up to a whole other world, and I lost count of the number of people who made contacts to the pavilion, and off the back of that ended up in jobs overseas. So I think the whole international mindset and the way we think as a city did change overnight, and it's extraordinary that one event could do it. But I think the difference between an Expo and like a G20 or an Olympics or a Commonwealth Games is they're a short period of time. 6 months is a very, very long period of time. So it keeps on giving, and even you've still got time once it started to do things at the end. So I think it was able to do that over a very long period of time. And there's a lot of people who didn't even go till the last 2 weeks, but suddenly they thought, we better get to this thing.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because it seems, certainly talking to everybody and looking back at footage and hearing people's anecdotes, that it went for 6 months, but nobody's enthusiasm or energy seemed to have waned. If anything, you talk about how difficult it was to get everyone to leave on the last night.
That is a wonderful story. It's not really my story. It belongs to Ross Gibbon, I think, who is our operations manager. But yes, the German beer hall, you probably heard me tell this, we couldn't get people to vacate the site so that the Expo staff could have their party. So in desperation, the Ross Gibbon convinced the Papa band to kind of lead them on a merry dance through the site, chicken dancing away, out to the gates, all were closed, and then they kind of went over the bridge into the city, and then we'll be out here somewhere.
I've no doubt that would have happened on more than one occasion, because I know that do you guys know that the ship-in had a 24-hour licence? I only know that anecdotally. It's not that I was there, but it was the first time that there was a 24-hour licence given to a publican. Is that right? Or am I making that up?
No, it's true.
Or was I just there in the warehouse?
Absolutely true.
You stayed through the night.
I didn't, only a couple of times, I promise. When you look back at that time now, I know that you and Sir Lou occasionally will go to South Bank for a stroll. Do people come up and still want to shake his hand and thank him?
Oh, look, they do. And I often say being married to Lou is like Expo every day. So, and I really mean that. Our phone still rings all the time with people getting in touch to let us know how their family are, or people come and they visited, worked in the pavilions. There's a great deal of that. So Lou and I do walk through Expo quite a lot on a Sunday evening, and I think it was Sally Ann or Bob saying she walked home at 11 o'clock at night. It's so full of people having a wonderful time, and yes, he's stopped constantly, and people like to talk to him, and he likes it too.
It's a lasting legacy, and one that the entire family must be incredibly proud of. And a year like this, that's an anniversary year, it's an opportunity to take stock, no doubt.
Yes, it is. I mean, I think from Lou's point of view, he's had a long and interesting life, but I think he would not hesitate to say that Expo was the most magical thing he ever did. And really, it was teamwork at its very, very best. I mean, Lou did his part of it, but, Bob, Barbara, so many, Laurie Smith, who put the beautiful gardens in, people in the media centre, everybody worked so well together, and I can't imagine any experience in my lifetime ever being like that again.
Graham, we talk about the leisure and lifestyle of this city and how South Bank is now so pivotal to that. I know you're incredibly passionate about it staying that way. We're going to have more development along the river. Will it just come off the back of what we already have at South Bank?
Yeah, look, I think South Bank is always going to be the centrepiece, isn't it? I mean, it's attracting now about 11 million people a year. We were talking earlier about, the cost of that parkland at the time, but it diminishes into almost $0 when you look at the economic benefit that has flowed to this city over that time. And the fight that Sally Ann started around that, which was captured then by media support, the people of the city and the state, I mean, the economic value of that battle made it all worthwhile. And it's so we've got new additions like Epicurious Gardens, so it will continue to evolve as a site, but the centrepiece of it is world class. Having a beach in the middle of the city, something quite unique to this city, something distinctively our city, and So it will continue to be the gem of Brisbane.
Oh, Streets Beach is the only inner city man-made beach in the world that's so close to a city centre, and the photographs that people take from around the world when they visit of themselves in the beach in the sunshine is extraordinary. We're now going to see more development along the river. You and I were on a City Cat together not long ago.
Yeah.
We'll have this wonderful opportunity to link these spots up.
Well, absolutely. I mean, what we want to do is to generate some mooring facilities around the city. A couple of those we're hoping to achieve at South Bank, in discussions with the South Bank Authority around those at the moment. But we want to have a taxi service for the river that will link all of the facilities of Brisbane, and also the capacity to be able to go from the centre of the city out to our wonderful Moreton Bay and to the Stradbroke and Moreton Islands, these facilities. And again, the South Bank will be one of what would be several vantage points on which to board those vessels to take in the greater opportunities we have in our city.
There are a few landmarks that have always been synonymous with Expo 88, and one of them is a permanent fixture on the West End skyline. And of course I'm talking about the Sky Needle. I'd love to invite Stefan to come up and tell the story about how he acquired the Sky Needle and how it'll be now a permanent fixture in the new Sky Needle apartments. Come on up, Stefan. There are a couple of permanent fixtures. One is the Nepalese Peace Pagoda, and I'm sure that many of you have already, remember seeing it down there. The interesting thing about the Peace Pagoda, and there is a story there to tell it, that we almost lost the Peace Pagoda were it not for a husband and wife who,
from Upper
Mount Cravat, they needed $30,000 to keep the Peace Pagoda from being broken down and actually put their hands in their pocket at retirement, and that's why we've got it there. And we almost lost the Sky Needle were it not for Stefan.
Cool. Hi. I took up boat racing, and after a few years I decided if I'm going to continue, I better do it properly. And at that time the Italians were the best race boat builders in the world. So I went to Italy and found the best boat racer. The top 10 boats in the world, 6 were his, so that's a good start. He's a real character. He said, you want me to build your boat, you stay here 6 weeks, we do it together. And then the next 6 weeks we have a race in Rome and Paris and Southampton. I'll take you there. So Rose and I were together and we went to Paris, what you see in Paris, monuments, and you see the Eiffel Tower. And that, for those who don't know, that was the Expo symbol for Paris. Then Rome, what do you see? Monuments, symbols. Then we went to Saint-Tropez, and everywhere you went, you saw these incredible monuments. So I get back to Brisbane. I get this guy, he wants to talk to me, but he won't tell anybody what he wants to talk to me about. He keeps ringing up this switch. And so I'm going to talk to Stefan, I'm going to talk to Stefan. So finally, and in those days I had 20 calls a week. People had some genius concept for me, as if they didn't realise I had enough concepts of my own going. So I said, finally tell him if he doesn't tell you what he wants, you're not taking this call anymore. He said, well, he says it's about the Sky Needle, but he won't say anymore. Okay, that's fair enough. So I went outside. I said, g'day, man, how are you? He said, hi. So, well, I want to talk to you. I said, good. Off you go. He said, well, what about Sky Needle? What about the Sky Needle? He said, if someone doesn't buy it by Friday, and that's Tuesday, it's going to bloody Disney World in Japan. And it shouldn't be going there. I said, but why are you telling me this? He said, well, mate, to be honest, I don't know anybody else that can save it except you. Oh, I said, that's a nice thing to say, but what makes you think I can save it? He said, mate, you've done a lot of things and I reckon you can save it. I said, come in. So I took him inside the office. Then we went to lunch at Jojo's 12 o'clock. We were there till 12 o'clock in the morning. And then we went to Albert Street, that little place that used to have play games there. Some of you might remember it, where you would have spent your youth. Then I went home, couldn't sleep. Then I went 4 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock to see Saru. That was Wednesday morning. I said, hello, sit down, Stephen. I've known Saru for quite a long time. Used to know Saru, a very good friend, Bobby Mathers. Sit down, Stephen. So he looked at me with pity in his eyes. He said, and you want to buy the Sky Needle? I said, well, yes, I do. He didn't go any further. I think he was relieved somebody from Australia was going to buy it, then going to Japan. He said, do you want to buy this Sky Needle? I said, yes, sir. He got a piece of paper, he signed it. very generous with the price. He said, off you go and good luck. So I rang up a friend of mine who's known as Romano Ferro. Romano Ferro is Louis Ferro's brother, then into construction. He said, Romano, I'm going to ask you something. He said, right. He said, I hear you about a stick. I said, yes. He said, what are you going to do with that thing? He said, you got any idea what that will cost you to put it in the ground? I said, they tell me about 150,000. He said, you put another 3 zeros in after that, maybe you're lucky to find something that will do for you. I said, Romano, you're the only one I know. He started shaking his head, and so we caught up. Cut the story short, lots of things happened, but I'm going to give you the fun bits. So Lou said, where are you going to put it? I said, I've got to find somewhere. He said, it's very big, you know. I said, yes. When I came to Australia, I learned this word, ignorance is a bliss. And how do you tell an Australian ignorance is bliss? It's like it's very hard. It wasn't until I was about 30 and I started to become interested in those philosophical quotes that I realised what it meant. If you're ignorant, you it's a gift. You don't know what you're landing yourself into. So when the moment came to put the sky needle in, I called on all my friends and I needed somewhere to put it. I don't know if you realise how big it is. It's bigger than 2 aeroplanes. So there's a block of land next to our block of land, and the guy that owned it is also Lebanese. When you say Lebanese, you've got to put the Christian Lebanese into it, then it's friends. And I said, Tony, he said, yeah, mate, yeah. I said, I need a favour. I said, sure, mate, we're mates. We're Lebanese people. We help each other, mate. I said, sure. And I was hoping he wouldn't ask me what the favour was. I said, Tony, can I use your land for a little while? I need to put something on. Oh, no, mate, no problem. We're mates. You're a hairdresser, I'm a hairdresser. We're mates, mate. No problem. I said, so I rang up, so I was delivered to Manning Street. Gave him the address. Well, 3 or 4 months later, this truck started arriving. And started arriving trucks after trucks. And 2 days later, I get this phone call from the Switch. The girl said, I think there's a man on the phone. I think he wants to talk to you. I said, what's his name? She said, I can't get his name. He's huffing and screaming. I said, sounds foreign, but I couldn't get his name. I said, okay, let me take it. We have a saying in Stephens, if it's happy, you give it to somebody else. If it's not, you give it to us, Stephen. But that was screaming, so I got it. I said, g'day. As soon as I got the phone, I knew who it was. It's Tony. I said, hello, mate, how are you? I said, he says, how am I? He says, mate, I'm trying to sell this land. I said, good. He said, how am I going to sell this land with this stuff on it? I said, relax, Tony, relax. You don't have a heart attack before you sell it. Come in, we'll have a coffee. I said, 10 minutes later, he says, so puffing. Sit down, let's have a coffee. So we had a coffee. He said, mate, I'm trying to sell this land. I said, relax. I said, it's okay, we'll work out a deal. Remember, he said, I can use it. He said, yeah, mate, but not to put this. I said, relax. We'll make a deal. I'll buy it off you. Oh, you're going to buy my land? I said, yes. How much do you want for it? I want $1.5 million. That's it. I said, that's a bit high, Tony, you know that. Not very high. I said, okay, give me your best price, we'll make it. I said, 135, but that's it. I said, okay, we shook hands. And he was in shock. He nearly died from that instead of the other way. So now I got the land, but I got no money. And so I went up to Mike, counted upstairs, he was very young, and I told him, and he was always quiet. Well, he was very quiet, that one. But again, ignorance is a bliss. There's a saying, you know, something favours the brave. It did favour me that time. So I had a beautiful house at the coast, so I never had any fear of pulling it off because I knew I had something in there with pretty decent substance to pull it off. So then the project started and everybody came in to the rescue, and the first engineering firm weren't quite to that level. So then I needed permission to put it in. So I went and saw my beautiful Lord Mayor and friend, and I said, Sally Ann, I need to put this thing somewhere. So she said, leave it with me. I'm being aware of what you've been doing. Just leave it to me. But the fact it's been up already will make my life a little bit easier. And we would rather stay here than going to Japan, so Disney World. So I made sure everybody knew I was going to Disney World because I needed all the help in the world. And a friend of mine, Terry Peabody, introduced me to Patrick Gay. He said, I know a guy that can pull that off for you, so Terry introduced me to Patrick Gay.
And Stefan, now the rest is history, and soon the apartments will be done and the Sky Needle will shine again.
I'll just tell you one more thing in that. Then Patrick looked at me and he said, young man, you are too brave, but I will save you. And he did, and that's the story of that. One little comment that people don't know also is what its purpose. Ken Brown just asked me does it have a purpose? Does anybody know its proper name is the Knight's Friend? It's the Knight's Friend. When people get lost, we should turn the light on. You saved one person from getting lost, but you got about 200 abusive phone calls.
And it will be a permanent fixture in the West End skyline. So thank you. Put your hands together for Steph. Thank you. I will just wrap up and ask each of our panellists. Thanks, Stephen. Thank you. I would just like to finish off by asking you one question, and I don't know if you can cast your memories back to this. After a massive 6 months of Expo and everything we were all exposed to and all of the stories that were written around the world and at home and the wonderful entertainment, what was November of 1988 like?
I don't know, I went to Bali. No, it was, I think, one of the most poignant moments for me, and I'm sure everybody who worked at Expo, was to say goodbye to my team, because we were so close by that stage. Saying farewell was really hard.
Graham, for you? It must have been the beginning of a really exciting time.
Yeah, look, it sort of was. I mean, there's nothing that stood out in November apart from still trying to perfect the chicken dance after the event. Look, I think it was just the wonderful memories. There was this crusade then that had to happen, but I was simply a member of a team, and Sally had led that, which was what we wanted post-Expo. That was the agenda.
So I think, like a lot of people, I slept most of November, just catch up on sleep. But it was interesting, like the last night at Expo, after everybody left, because I still had access to the site, I just took a walk around the entire site, and there was people everywhere, but just solemn, and including some who were absolutely in tears. And there's one I walked up to, just said, "Hey, are you okay?" And they said, "I really don't know what to do now." And that was a bit of a sentiment. So I think everyone who was experienced it had a bit of a thing, like, what do we do now? Because it was such a big thing, and there was just that sense afterwards of it's gone. What's next?
Well, I hope we've had an opportunity today to share some stories and to look back on a really exciting time in our city's history with fondness. I would say more than anything else, and certainly this idea that it left everybody with very special and happy memories. Thank you for joining us for lunch today. Feel free to stay for a little longer and have a chat and a cup of tea or coffee. Enjoy the remains of your afternoon and a fabulous weekend. If you find yourself in front of a TV, 5:30 on Sunday. Diving on Lady Elliot with the fabulous Peter Gash. I'd love you to join me for that. Please put your hands together one more time for our panel.
So how good is this showdown in all its glory?